This gives the virus an appearance of a crown. Crown in Latin means corona, and thus called as coronavirus. It is a kind of zoonotic virus, transmits from mammals to humans. The first human coronavirus was isolated in 1960, from persons suffering from common cold. Initially 2 species were identified: human coronavirus 229E, and human coronavirus OC43. After many years, in 2003, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus was isolated in China. Later in 2012, Middle East respiratory syndrome coronavirus was isolated in the Middle East countries. Cases of this virus were initially reported in all Middle East countries, and later spread over to other countries by 2015. Recently in December 2019, a new coronavirus, which has not been identified previously, was found in people suffering from respiratory infection, in the city of Wuhan, China. An interim name is given to this virus, as 2019 novel coronavirus, by the World Health Organization. Coronaviruses are a large group of viruses that are common in many different animal species like camels, cattle, cats and bats. In the beginning, the infections caused by this virus were confined to animals belonging to specific species. Later, the virus has found its way to human beings. For example, the MERS-CoV has been transmitted from camels, and the SARS-CoV has been transmitted from civet cats. Scientists are suspecting that the 2019 nCoV has been transmitted from bats to humans. The transmission of the virus is currently unknown. However, based on what is known about similar coronaviruses, it is believed that the virus spreads from person to person by close contacts. Usually, the virus transmits from respiratory droplets produced when an infected person sneezes, just like other respiratory pathogens spread. Rarely, a person can also get the virus by touching the surface that has the virus on it, and then touching their own nose and mouth. Symptoms include fever, cough, shortness of breath, and breathing difficulties. In most severe cases, infection can cause pneumonia, kidney failure, and subsequently, death. The incubation period may range from 2 days to 14 days. However, the virus is contagious, even before the symptoms appear. Currently, there is no medicine or vaccine to prevent 2019 novel coronavirus infection. The only way to prevent infection is to avoid getting exposed to this virus. The following hygienic practices are recommended to prevent infection. Wash your hands with soap water before eating, after using washrooms, and after blowing nose. Avoid touching eyes, nose, and mouth with unwashed hand. Stay away from people who are sick. Using masks in public places. Cover your sneeze and cough. Better not to travel to the countries where the infection is widely spread. Thoroughly cooking of meat and eggs.
Alright, engineers, in this video we're going to talk about COVID-19, or the novel coronavirus that was discovered in 2019. I want you guys to know that this video that we're making today, all the information that we're going to be talking about is as of up to date as March 15, 2020. So I just want you guys to know that. In addition, this video is purely for educational purposes only. We're going to have a medical disclaimer pop up here. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and get started on this COVID-19 lecture. So again, I want you guys to remember that we're making this video here on March 15, 2020. Obviously, things could change from this time until the future. As those things change, we will try to continue to keep you guys updated with future videos to go into more detail on these things. Okay, but again, this is as of right now. All right, so what should we know about the coronavirus, right? Well, we know that the coronavirus, or this 2019 coronavirus, okay, it's similar to specifically the SARS virus. If you guys remember what that was, there was an outbreak called the Severe Acute Respiratory Distress Syndrome, and it was coronavirus specifically in 2002. And what happened is that they believed that this virus, this SARS virus, actually had the ability to hop over from a bat, okay? From that bat, it mutated in such a way that it can then infect another host, another intermediate host, right? So it started off with a bat. From the bat, it then may be transferred over what we believe to be a civet. And then from that civet, it mutated enough to be able to infect a human, because coronaviruses naturally, they're pretty benign and they don't cause a lot of significant effects within the human, maybe just your viral rhinitis, viral pharyngitis, viral laryngitis, but rarely are they going to be causing these severe acute respiratory distress syndrome types of things. But again, if they mutate enough where they go through some type of animal reservoir, they can become mutated enough to be able to cause severe infection in humans. And that's what the SARS virus did in 2002. A couple years later, actually a decade later, to 2012, it happened again, where the coronavirus had the ability to mutate again, where we have a bat where we believe to be, again, the animal reservoir where the virus mutated, then transmitted to what we believe to be a camel. So from bat to camel as this next intermediate host, and then from there it mutated enough where it could then infect a human, okay? This is the MERS virus, and again, this is the Middle Eastern Respiratory Distress Syndrome that occurred in 2012. Hop now to 2019, where we now talk about the coronavirus, particularly COVID-19, which was the coronavirus discovered in 2019. Again, we believe that this actual virus underwent a mutation via this zoonosis, right? So we have a bat. It mutated within the bat. Then it actually had the ability to mutate within another animal as the intermediate host, potentially. Again, we're still not completely sure, but we believe it could be what's called a pangolin. So they think that this virus hopped onto a bat as its reservoir, mutated enough, got transferred to a pangolin, mutated enough that it can now infect a human and cause COVID-19, okay, which is the novel coronavirus discovered in 2019. This is what we know about this virus. Now, another thing that we have to understand about this virus is not just the zoonosis effect of it, but we also should know some of the case fatality rates, because this is becoming a big concern in society right now. Everybody is very, very scared of the coronavirus. And again, we don't want to overreact, but we want to make sure that we don't underreact to this virus, because it is a very serious virus. To give you guys a little bit of an example of the case fatality rates, if we take the SARS virus in 2002, case fatality rate is just, again, the total number of cases on the bottom. So if you guys want to remember the formula, very simple formula, the number of deaths divided by the total number of cases, okay? And then multiply it by 100. So they see that this virus, the SARS virus in 2002, had 8,000 total cases with 800 deaths. That gives us a case fatality rate of 10%. That's pretty decent. Move on to the next one, the MERS virus in 2012. 850 died where there was 2,500 total cases. That's going to give us a case fatality rate of 34%. Hop on down here to the COVID-19 as of March 15, 2020. We have 153,517 cases. Okay, this is worldwide with 5,735 deaths. That gives us 3.7%. Now, a lot of resources, the World Health Organization, CDCs, different things like that, say that this number technically could even be lower. Why? You have to remember that there's a lot of people who are asymptomatic with this virus. Okay, in other words, they're not presenting with the classic symptoms that we would see with the coronavirus. So if they're asymptomatic, they technically would be one of the cases, but they might not present. They might not go to the hospital, get tested, and come up positive for the coronavirus. So technically, if we think about it, there might be thousands upon thousands more cases where people are just asymptomatic, thought that they have the common cold or maybe the flu, but really they have the coronavirus. And think about it. As this denominator increases, the more cases we have, that case fatality rate could technically decrease. And that's what you want to think about right now. Yes, it is scary, the number of cases that we have and the deaths. But again, this denominator, it could technically be a little bit larger. Okay? All right, so that's what I want you guys to understand right now about the basic points of the coronavirus when it comes to the zoonotic effects. In other words, how this coronavirus mutated enough that it could infect humans and cause severe acute respiratory distress syndrome. Okay? If you understand this via the SARS, it's pretty much the same kind of thing. The bat was pretty much the primary animal reservoir that then passed it on to an intermediate host, right? Which we believe at this point in time to be a pangolin. Now, how is this important? Pangolins, according to a lot of the research, showed that this actually, its scales have healing properties. So therefore, it's highly trafficked all around the world. So that's what also makes this very dangerous and therefore increasing the risk of a pandemic. Okay? So again, we need to be careful when it comes to these and just realize that this intermediate host could potentially be one of the things that's actually allowing for this mutation of the virus and making it allow for it to affect humans in such a way. All right, let's move on to the next epidemiological fact when we talk about the coronavirus. When we talk about the coronavirus, we have to talk about what's called the R0. The R0 stands for the reproductive ratio. Okay? Special way of saying this is the degree of spreadability. That's really all it is. How much can one person, how many people can one person infect? That's a simple way of saying it. So if I take, for example, let's say here is this one person here, okay, patient number 1. He has the coronavirus, COVID-19. He's been infected. He goes around other people. He's in the same room with a bunch of people, okay? If he happens to sneeze or cough and he spreads those respiratory droplets that could be airborne, and they somehow get into the mucous membranes of people nearby, how many could he potentially infect? They say that he can infect 3 people. So therefore, the R0 of COVID-19 has actually been said to be anywhere from 2 to 3. Could even be higher. We'll talk about that in just a little bit, what I mean by that. So again, what's the R0 for COVID-19? We believe it to be anywhere from 2 to 3. Let's take the worst case scenario and say it's 3. Okay, one person can infect 3 people, right? So you start off with one person. That infects 3 people. These 3 people, each one infects 3 more people. That gives us 9 patients now infected with COVID-19. Now these 9 people can go and infect 3 people each. How many is that? 27. So you can see how this is an exponential rise. If we look at this on a graph, when we look at R0 of COVID-19, let's do it here in blue. If you look here at R0 on the y-axis, what are you going to see? You're going to see this number, it's going to increase, right? It's going to be exponential. This is an exponential growth. If we compare the R0 of influenza, which is around 1.3 approximately, let's just round it to 1 and say that one person has the ability to infect one other person. So if this person is infected with influenza, he's going to pass it on to one more person. That one person is going to pass it on to the next person, which is going to pass it on to the next person, right? So you can tell right now just by comparing influenza and COVID-19 that this is much larger spreadability, whereas this has a much lower spreadability, okay? So if we were to compare that, is this exponential? Is this decreasing, or is it pretty much just kind of the same? Is it a flat line? It's a flat line, right? So we should see the R0 here being straight. What would we prefer for this to look like? Less than 1. Preferably, we don't want this to have such a high spread. So if we had a perfect case scenario, we would love for this to start decreasing. How do we do that? How do we make the R0 drop? You're going to be quarantining, staying away out of large crowds, trying to decrease that spreadability by spreading respiratory droplets, making sure that you're washing your hands, making sure that you're not touching your T-zone. And by doing that and self-quarantining yourself and staying out of large crowds, we can potentially decrease that spreadability. That's what we want with this virus. So currently, right now, you can see how our R naught is greater than 1, that's allowing for this exponential growth. That's why there's so many cases. In comparison to something like flu, which is 1, and what we would prefer is an R naught less than 1. Okay? Last thing I got to talk about here, because R naught not only determines the rate of transmission or the degree of spreadability, but there's also another factor, and this is called the series interval. So SI is referred to as the series interval. A special, very simple way of describing this is, let's say here's patient 1, okay? Patient 1 develops symptoms, okay? And let's say from the day 0 that he develops symptoms all the way until day 14. Okay, let's say that he has symptoms for 14 days. So this is when the symptoms stop. This is when the symptoms start. Let's say that somewhere during his period of infection, he spreads that virus to another person. So let's call this X2, right? Here's X1. Patient 1